good morning, and welcome to Inquire Live at Gameday Central. I'm David Murphy, sports columnist at the Philadelphia Inquirer, and as you can see on my right, Marcus Hayes, legendary sports columnist of the Daily News and Philadelphia Inquirer, is live on location at Philadelphia Cricket Club in beautiful Flourtown, Pennsylvania. Bustling metropolis in Montgomery County. We are here to preview the Truist Championship, which is coming to the Philadelphia area for the first time. It's on a 1 week or 1 year hiatus from Quail Hollow, I believe, where the PGA Championship will be played next week. And we're here to break it all down. It's a fascinating event that is a newly dubbed signature event on the PGA Tour, and a lot of big names are in Flourtown, right, Marcus?
Absolutely. I mean, the reigning Masters champion, Rory McIlroy, is here. Justin Thomas, who broke a drought. Xander Schauffele coming back from an injury. Justin Rose, who's won twice in the Philadelphia area in 2010 at the AT&T that was relocated from Congressional at Aronimink. And then, of course, 2013 when Marion ended its drought of hosting U.S. Opens, and he took that U.S. Open right from the clutches of Phil Mickelson. So there's been a lot of really good drama with golf around here. Some of the names are back. And, it's interesting that, cricket is hosting this because cricket is a very, very famous club built by a very, very famous architect, A.W. Tillinghast, a Philadelphia native. He considered this his home course, but it isn't sort of built to host golf, PGA Tour events the way that Tillinghast hoped it would. It was actually constructed about 5 miles from the Central Philadelphia Cricket Club, where they actually play cricket and have a smaller golf course, St. Martin's, with the idea that it could host championships one day because St. Martin's certainly couldn't. But that day has come. This is the biggest event they've ever had here. The excitement is, and I'm not being facetious, it's palpable. People in the area are psyched. A couple of the days are already sold out, but I'm sure if you wanted to come, you could get on the grounds. And cricket is a hard place to get to. It's almost worth coming to just to see, because it's very private, very exclusive, and it's one of the more beautiful old school golf courses you'll ever be on.
That's what I was going to ask you about. It's Wednesday morning, and there's a pro-am going on today. The first round begins tomorrow, Thursday, right. And then obviously it's a standard PGA tournament schedule: Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. What is the vibe like today? Are there crowds today? Is the public allowed in for the pro-am?
Absolutely.
What does the scene look like?
So the way that golf tournaments work, in case you're interested in coming, you park off-site, you get shuttled in, and then you walk down this path to wherever. The paths were pretty congested. The media and the volunteers, the staff and the media, we get dropped off at the same area. It's the Militia Hill Clubhouse. There are two golf courses here. One's Militia Hill. It was completed in 2002, and one is Wissahickon, and it's the original Tillinghast design from 1922. So you walk into this golf course, and it's kind of like you used to hear those stories about the city kids walking into Yankee Stadium the first time and it being like Valhalla. It's like that. You walk through the tunnel and then all of this is around you. I'm actually at the spot where you kind of see the first part of the complex. This is the 9th hole behind me. It's a par 3, number 9 at Militia Hill. So that golf course is closed, but you see that golf course getting to this golf course. So yeah, there's a real buzz in the air. You get dropped off. There's tons of music on the walkway. They have a DJ to escort you in with this pounding sort of like party music. And yeah, there's Jason Kelsey is playing in the pro-am. Rory, JT, and Xander are all out there already. And it's going to be all day. It's going to be a kind of an event. Again, something Philadelphia doesn't see very frequently. I will say this: next year, around this time or so, we're going to have the PGA here. The PGA Championship is going to be in Philadelphia at Aronimink. One of the reasons this isn't being held at Aronimink is because Aronimink has situated itself to host majors. So golf, PGA Tour golf, is a burgeoning industry in Philadelphia. And yeah, the excitement here today is palpable. People lining up on the range. That's the other thing. You get close to your path takes you right by the driving range, takes you right by the practice green. So these guys, you know, you can't go up and touch them like they're, you know, it's a petting zoo, but they're right there in front of you. They're accessible. And that's one of the wonderful things about golf. It's like, you know, if there are 40 events every year, it's like 40 spring trainings. You're right there on the same level with the guys.
So now I know you're not allowed to touch them, but do they at least have like little cracker containers that you can?
You can't feed them either.
You can't feed them? No.
No.
My second question is, I have to. You know, I don't know if people know how it usually works, but these clubs host these tournaments, and the members a lot of times, you know, serve as volunteers. So I'm just asking, which member is the DJ?
Which member is they hired a professional. You can tell. If you looked at the DJ, you'd be like, that guy doesn't belong to a country club.
Okay.
Between the hair and the clothes and the dance moves, you know, he's very much a DJ. But
Philadelphia Cricket Club is not a big dubstep place.
It's not, but I will say, since they built Militia Hill, they wanted to attract more. I think there's 800 members here now between the two golf courses and the actual cricket club, where they play cricket and have lawn bowling and field hockey and things like that on the main line. So, but the vibe at cricket, because I was here 25 years ago, I was a guest of one of my coworkers at the papers. The vibe here is very different now than it was on purpose. Golf has changed. I mean, we have Live Golf that plays golf in shorts with music all the time now. We have, you know, things like the Waste Management, where I think it's number 16 at the Waste Management is an amphitheater par 3 where people throw beer at you if you do well. You know, golf is a very different animal than in Tillinghast's age, and very different than it was even 25 years ago.
At Philadelphia Cricket, they throw Macallan at you.
That's right. They throw flutes of champagne and stuff. Yeah.
But and a semi-serious note, you know, you were talking about, you know, the tournament and the crowds and tickets, and, you know, Philadelphia Cricket is a club that, you know, just the name kind of evokes sort of a, I don't want to say mystery, but it is. Mm-hmm. It's not the most accessible club in the world.
Right.
You know, it's not the kind of place that non-members regularly play. You know, they keep access pretty restricted.
They keep the riffraff out, Dave. They keep you and me at arm's length, and I don't blame them.
So I guess my question was, is there like a special knock or anything that people need to do to get in there? You know, in all seriousness, what is the accessibility like right now? You know, how are they opening this club up to kind of the masses?
Well, it's an interesting sort of story. They were approached because it was kind of an emergency call, right? They knew the PGA was going to be at Quail Hollow, but they thought maybe Aronimink would be available. Aronimink got the PGA, so it wasn't available, and there were some other options as well. But the clubs just weren't available. Now, the most significant event this has hosted was the 2015 Senior Players Constellation, I believe it was called. Bernhard Longer won it. John Daly was here, and it was kind of a big deal. But this is probably 3 or 4 times as big a deal. Certainly, you've got and the event here is interesting to talk about too, I think, because when Live Golf burst onto the scene and started buying PGA players, the most famous one probably Phil Mickelson, but also Bryson DeChambeau, Patrick Reed, Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, you know, these guys who contend at majors and win majors and have big names. They were given hundreds of millions of dollars to go play for a league with team golf and different kind of formats. And it was backed by Saudi Arabia, which is controversial because of Saudi Arabia's history with human rights and, honestly, its involvement in 9/11. So, and a lot of, you know, the PGA, there's so many New York connections there that there was outrage, if you remember. Mm-hmm. So in order to keep people like Rory and Justin Thomas and Scotty Scheffler and Xander Schauffele from defecting to Live, as so many golfers did, the PGA Tour became more lucrative for them. And they created bigger purses for all the majors, as well as the players. They increased the purse in their sort of playoff format for the FedEx Cup, which gets you like a $20-25 million annuity if you win the whole shooting match, which is huge money, right? And you can win it multiple years. But they also elevated these events, several of these events, to signature event status, which means instead of having a $9.5 or $10 million payout like they had at the Byron Nelson last week in Texas, won by Scotty Scheffler, They have a $20 million purse and a $3.6 million payout, which is commensurate with what Live Golf gives its normal tournaments. So that's how there's no upfront bonus money like Live had, but that's how they're competing with Live Golf. And there are other avenues for guys to get money as well. But this is like, if the top tier is the majors, and then the second tier is the FedEx Cup, there is now a third tier of golf, and this is the third tier before the fourth or fifth tiers of PGA Tour golf, where there used to just be sort of 3 tiers. And this is now the third elevated tier. A lot of money, a lot of big names. One disappointment, obviously, Scotty Scheffler isn't here. He's the number 1 golfer in the world. He just set the scoring record for PGA Tour event. Every golfer who's in the live or not in the signature event pool can take one of the 8 events off. Scotty chose this one. He's from Texas. He's from the Dallas area, I believe. He played there, won there this past week. Wants to take this week off because the PGA is in the PGA Championship, which is a major, and all these guys here we're going to be playing in the PGA Championship. The PGA Championship is next week in Quail Hollow, which is why this is here now. So everybody except the number 1 golfer, and I think Jason Day withdrew yesterday. There's tons of big names, but this event is, this is the biggest event Philadelphia will host since the U.S. Open and until the PGA Championship next year.
Yeah, I think next year, if Scotty Scheffler wants to play in the Byron Nelson, he should have to play left-handed.
It wasn't fair. He's so good, and it's also, I also wonder now, you and I did a lot of stuff about on the golf course and its history with A.W. Tillinghast. I think you did a piece on the number of golf architects around the turn of the 18th to the 19th to the 20th century who created tons of golf courses, not just here, but all over the Northeast, and also in California and Chicago and all these wonderful places. And I wonder a little bit, because one of the things I found out is none of these guys got here early. This place doesn't open until April, so it's early May. Weather's bad. They've got a ton of other things to do. They've got to play in the Masters. They've got to play at the Players. They've got all these other things to do. And none of them came last year. None of them have even consulted local caddies. So I don't know if Scotty maybe wasn't scared off. If he's got to take one off, this makes more sense because there's no home field advantage and no way to sort of scout it. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. All right. So we've got a lot. We got a lot to cover in the last 15 minutes here, including a conversation I had with the heads groundskeeper at Cricket, Dan Mearsman. I think director of grounds is a more formal way to say it. Great guy, knows his stuff, and has really got the course in great shape. But he's got a fascinating role, and I think one of the things, as you mentioned, that you and I are more interested in, rather than the Truist Championship or the Truist Invitational, whatever it's called, the Truist Championship.
Truist Championship, yeah,
it's right there in front of my face on the screen. It's not necessarily topical in this area. I don't know that we have a ton of people that are going to be hanging on every shot on television, but the event itself is interesting because, as you mentioned, you have this modern day PGA field coming to this course that was, to give you the Cliffs Notes version of the stuff Marcus and I have been writing, was built in the early 1920s during this kind of prolonged boom of golf course design and construction that would later be known as the golden age of golf, kind of the classical age of golf. The Marions, the Huntington Valleys, and the Rivieras out in California, San Francisco Country Club, LA Country Club. LA Country Club, an interesting one that's kind of been on my mind since it hosted the U.S. Open, I believe it was a couple years ago. And they just absolutely destroyed that course. An A.W. Tillinghast course, which doesn't necessarily tell you much of anything, given that he really adapted his courses to the land. But right, that was Tillinghast course, Marcus.
Tillinghast, yes, and also like Winged Foot, which is incredibly difficult. Baltusrol, which is incredibly difficult.
Yep. But so the big question, that's kind of been murmured about, amongst the members and obviously the national media as a whole, is what are these guys going to do to this course? Marcus and I both have played it, and I'll tell you, there's not a lot of trouble on it. And especially with how long these guys hit these days, there's only so much. Tillinghast, when he designed golf courses, and every golf course architect for that matter, they're trying to maximize the land, and in an area like Philadelphia, with that, the population density has been increasing ever since that golf course was built. There's not a whole lot of ways to retrofit it and make it longer, or there's only so much you can do, in order to kind of future-proof this place. And they can do things with the pin placements, with the green lengths, with the rough length, to make it more difficult. But it's always a question when you come to one of these country clubs. And I bring up LA just because I remember watching that on TV and it becoming a little boring with how well they were playing. There was just no. That was the one Wyndham Clark won, and don't get me wrong, he was great, but it was just, there were no bad shots, and you had to. There was just no way for anybody to catch him at some point. So Dan and I dove into that a little bit because he's the guy. This is his baby. It's him versus the players almost in a way. What do you think is going to how that dynamic's going to play out? Do you think this is going to be another LA Country Club, or is this going to be the senior event where I think Langer finished over par?
Well, the good news is it's never going to be more difficult. They've grown the rough very quickly and very thick. There are like 120 bunkers here, so if you're not precise, you can sort of feed balls into the bunkers. But you're right. Because of the moisture we've had over the last 2 or 3 days, it's going to be beautiful today. It's going to be pretty nice tomorrow. But Friday it might be rained out, or if it rains hard enough. But then Saturday, Sunday, they should be able to certainly finish the tournament on time. That said, the worst combination is low wind and soft greens. If you want to keep the scoring challenging, if you want them to go low, you do exactly what nature is doing right now. You soften it up for the first couple of days. It's relatively cool today as well, so it's not going to dry out that much. It does drain very, very well into Lorraine Run, I think it is, a tributary of Wissahickon Creek. It does drain well, but there's only so much you can do to defend this course. And if the wind doesn't come up on the weekend, you could be looking at something, 20 under par or better from multiple golfers.
Why don't we go to that interview right now? I sat down with Dan yesterday. He was kind of in between meetings dealing with the weather. But it was an interesting conversation, and he had some thoughts on the whole dynamic as well. Hey, Dan, thanks for joining us. I know you're a busy man these days. The weather forecast, I know you can't do anything about it, but what do you know about it? And, what do you think it's going to look like this weekend?
Yeah, I think this weekend we should have some nice weather. We are looking at possibly some late showers on Thursday, and then possibly an all-day kind of series of rainfall events that just kind of, swirl around us for Friday. So I think if we could get all the golf in on Thursday, Friday, then we set up for a really nice weekend, especially for spectators and patrons to come on out to the club and enjoy nice, beautiful, sunny 7-degree weather in Philadelphia. So that's what we're hoping for. And on the golf course side of things, we're trying to keep things as fast as possible on the greens. Despite some rainfall, we have been able to get all of our AM and PM mowing and rolling in so far. So the golf course is primed and ready, and we just need a break as far as the weather to kind of get us to that weekend time right now.
So even, take the specific acute circumstances out of the situation. Every golf course kind of has a microclimate, and you see how the elements play at, TPC or Rolling Green here locally. At cricket, is there a wind element? Is there in the rain, does it play differently? What are kind of what are the local elements there for cricket? Yeah,
it's one that we typically we're a fairly open site. We have less than 100 internal trees on the Wissahickon golf course, so the wind can definitely kick up. I think that will hopefully occur over the weekend. Right now, with the rain on top of us, things are fairly calm. The nice part of Wissahickon is that it's really about the greens complexes. So our greens go right to the edge of the pads that they're on, so they get very close to the trouble, the bunkers, which makes setup decisions very interesting as well. And so I mean, the players are so good, and just seeing some practice rounds the last couple of days, you get a full appreciation of just how good those guys are, and especially when conditions get soft, they are truly amazing to watch. And so I think though that short game shots are always interesting at cricket. You miss a green, you go over back of a green. These are classic green undulations on the surrounds and the undulations on the greens themselves, and that's not something that the tour players see very often on tour. They don't play very many classic northeastern, mid-Atlantic golf courses. And so my early feedback from the players has been they really love the golf course. So I mean, we're excited that they're having a great time, even though it's been a little misty out.
So a guy in your position, how do you look at it? The question is always, anytime a new course, especially an older, more historic course, gets introduced into the fray, it's what are these guys going to do to this course? As the guy whose course it is, is it an us versus them with the course? How do you approach getting the course ready and seeing how it will hold up with these guys?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say there might be a little bit of that within your membership. I don't think that it's that way within your senior leadership at the club. I think your senior leaders that have to make decisions based on what events you're going to host and what governing bodies you're going to work with, whether it's PGA Tour, USGA, Golf Association of Philadelphia. Each of those championships has goals for their players in their field based on their ability and what they're trying to achieve. And I think as a host site, you want to try to accommodate that, like any good host, having a party or a get together. And, we try to learn what their objectives are and try to help them achieve their goals. And I think that when we do that, I think, the club shows itself off really well as a gracious host. And I think the Wissahickon Golf Course is just so marvelous from a standpoint of not only, only one player in the field is going to win any championship, but Wissahickon has an amazing ability to leave every golfer in the field pretty satisfied with a great experience.
Yeah, excuse me. It's interesting too. I mean, there's kind of a fine line between, obviously you can do anything with pin placements and preparing the course to make it, borderline unplayable, but there's a fine line between, we've seen tournaments where, it's not even fun to watch because it's not fair and it almost goes overboard. And then you see tournaments, obviously, where, the scores get up there. How do you approach that with regards to the philosophy? And I know that the tour is heavily involved with that, but how do you walk that line between wanting to put on a good event, for viewers, but also wanting to challenge the golfers without going over the top?
Yeah, I would say for any championship, in my mind, you are walking a tightrope. It is a very fine line. You're probably managing within a 3% margin of error, 4% margin of error there, and based on green speed. And our 17th green for this tournament routing is a very good indicator for our green on what's fair and not fair. And it's a 3-tiered green. And what I use as an example is for member play, we might say if a player misses the shot to the back shelf, that might even be a good, just that they hit the green. We'd say that player should be able to die the ball at the hole and they can tap in their putt. For championship golf, when you're trying to separate best players from not so best of the best, you can say, hey, if you've missed to the back shelf, that's really quite a mishit for this particular field. The best you dying it on that hill, getting it back to that second shelf, you're going to have a 4-foot putt at minimum, 4 to 8 foot putt. And, maybe 50% of those people are going to make that putt. And then where you could walk a tournament off the cliff is if you had the green so fast that you, from that back shelf, you can't keep it on the second shelf. And then your ball rolls 80 yards away and now you're chipping. And that's when people would say this is unfair. And the other metric we look at based on weather forecasts is you really don't want to put a ball in a green and have it just simply blow away with wind. And sometimes you can have very high wind forecasts that cause you to do that. And as a tournament setup person, that really makes you sick to your stomach, because really the only person that caused that is you,
right? And
maybe the rules official that made the decision to let you do that as well. So nobody ever wants to feel that feeling. And even though, people within the golf world or your membership, certain individuals may want to see you really get it really, really fast, those same folks often don't have to live with the decisions when you have to suspend play and you have 156 players looking at you like, how did you do this?
I was going to try to dive into that with you. what is what's the stress level for someone like yourself? Obviously there's all the preparations which bring a certain amount of pressure, but then, you'll be walking around the course and hearing people make comments on the course and watching TV and the guys are talking about how the course is playing. And that's, you're the one who kind of, that's you. What's that like for you? What do you think it's going to be like for you?
Fortunately, we've been through a handful of these before, so it's not as much stress level as trying to keep my people and everybody calm. Our shifts start at 4 a.m, and so our assistants are getting there at 3:30 in the morning. Obviously, they play golf during the day. There's certain responsibilities during the day, and then we come back for an evening shift after golf. Based on weather delays, you might not get out of there till 9:30, 10 o'clock at night to then turn around and do it at 3 a.m. for 7 or 8 straight days with practice rounds more than that. And so you're trying to make sure people aren't getting sleep deprived and they're well rested. They're not making mistakes. Simple things like gallery rope going up everywhere and you're working in the dark. You want to make sure nobody gets hurt. The course conditioning, I'm fortunate to just have an amazing team where the conditions are really, really good. And we have metrics and things that we shoot for that. And at the same time, right now with the rain in the forecast, I also have the responsibility of making sure our course incurs minimal damage outside of the ropes. So, between TV and all the outside vendors, catering, there's a lot of people navigating our property. And when conditions get really sloppy, we'll be in for a larger repair than if we were perfectly dry.
I can't imagine watching people traipse around in the mud through the golf course, and that's my grass,
Yeah, I'm sure it would be a little bit like an Animal House, right? Where it's when it's raining, you just feel like you don't close your eyes. You try to address everything that comes up, but there is a party that goes, "Oh wow, this is my baby," and we're letting it get trampled on right now.
So you're from we were talking off screen. You're a turf guy through and through. Your grandfather was a superintendent. Your father was a superintendent. What was life like growing up for you? How did you get into this business? And what is it like coming from a long line of guys that have done the same thing that you've done? Yeah,
I've always enjoyed it. I think one thing that attracted me to it, it was outside a lot. You were inside a little bit. You kind of have to take the good with the bad. You're out in sunny and 70-degree days, and you have $1 million views of a gorgeous piece of property. And there's times where you're working in 100-degree weather and single-digit weather as well. But I would say working at golf clubs is really rewarding in that on the physical side, you're making improvements that you get to see for a long time. When you renovate a golf hole or something like that, or you condition something and it looks really pretty. And then on the people side, most people that are members of your clubs in any geographic region are some of the more dynamic people in your area. So whether that's doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, folks in education, public service, you meet all walks of life at your club, and you have access to those people when you need to problem solve and try to get things done either for your club or within the community or for your employees. So I think that combination, it's sports, it's recreation, it's outdoors. It's big business as well. Our club is a $30 million revenue club, and we represent a major piece of land in an important urban setting in an urban market. And I think the club and our members take that responsibility seriously, as do we.
Yeah, it's the fascinating thing to me that people might not think about when they're just out there playing is, a golf course it's part engineering, it's part agronomy, it's part physics and calculus and projecting, where balls are going to go. The science behind it, is that something that you really were into growing up?
Yeah, it was. It's nice that, when we do use science and data to make decisions and best practices, and it's one that, I say like a golf course, an athletic field, to me, it's a little bit like a crime scene. Like I can tell by looking at it how it's been maintained, what's been done to it. And that's also part of the strategy of it and what's rewarding about doing it well, right? Some of the things it takes to do it well, they're not tremendously complicated things, but it does take the discipline to do the hard things every day. And when you take the easy route, sometimes it, it's no different than somebody that wants to try to, that knows how to stay fit, but can't seem to go work out every day, or can't seem to eat the right food. They know what to do, but they're not doing it. It's very similar in turf in a lot of ways.
So with that being said, is this rewarding? Will it be, I assume maybe it might not be rewarding till it's over and you can think about it, but what's it going to be like, do you think? And what is it like kind of seeing the eye of the PGA Tour kind of come to your course that you've spent, the last 10, 11 years really trying to lift up?
Yeah, I think it's rewarding in that our membership made a commitment to renovate this golf course in 2013, and they opened it in 2014. It received Best Restoration of the Year that year in the U.S. It made the all-time largest jump back into top 100 classic courses in America. And so I think it's rewarding several years later that we've worked with every governing body in American golf, that now the very best players in the world are coming to their golf course. I think that's validating for them. As a fan of golf, it's for myself as well. It's neat to see the best players come to the club. But at the end of the day, too, we've helped 35 former assistants become golf course superintendents. We have a lot of volunteer and alumni coming back. We have, volunteers from Australia and France this week. People from local clubs around Philadelphia. So it's also rewarding just to see people that you haven't seen in a while, and to know that they know your course like a light switch in your bathroom. It can be dark out and they just know where to hit that switch and what to do. So we have not only a very talented turf staff on our grounds team as employees. We have about 12 or 13 of those folks that have turf degrees, but then the people that you're bringing in for the week are immensely talented as well.
So how many hours will you be at the course physically this week?
Well, I live on property as well, so okay. I don't go very far. It was funny, the PGA Tour folks were just teasing me about traffic in the area, and I said, the golf cart traffic to and from my shop isn't too bad. So I don't get caught up too much. But no, it's
you might have to yell for some people to get off the lawn, though, right?
That's right. It's around the clock, and we all know what we're in for this, and it's also, it's a privilege to get to do what we do and be responsible for a club and a piece of property like this, and that so many people have a vested interest in what's going on this week, and we take that serious, and we want it to come off well. So whatever's needed, we do.
Well, we'll let you get back to it. You've already taken probably way too much of your time talking to us, but we appreciate you giving us a little insight into the grounds aspect of it this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Enjoy the championship, David. Thanks a lot. Thanks for highlighting the club.
Absolutely. That was Dan Mearsman. Great insight from the man himself. Marcus, I know you have to run.
Yes, we got some interviews going on here.
Talk to Rory. Give me a quick pick and say goodbye to your loyal viewers.
Well, as I said earlier, Justin Rose just seems to take to these old school courses like Aronimink, where he won in 2010, was a runner-up in 2011. Certainly Marion Golf Club, where he won the U.S. Open, his only major. And now he's back on one of these sort of like classic golf courses, and he's playing great. He lost to Rory in a playoff at the Masters at another classic golf course. You might have heard of it, Augusta National. So Justin Rose is going to be kind of my favorite / dark horse pick, because not everybody can pick Rory, right?
And I'm going to pick the same guy I pick every week, Ludwig Oberg. That's my guy.
That's cool. That's awesome. Thanks, Dave. It's been great.
We're going to be there all 4 days, all the rest of the week. Tune into inquire.com. Tons of content. Jeff McLean, Jeff Nyberg, Marcus Hayes, myself. It's going to be a fascinating event, and maybe we'll see some of you guys out there. I'm David Murphy with the Philadelphia Inquirer. For Marcus, Angelica, our producer, thanks for tuning in.